Good morning, everyone. We are going to reconvene the meeting that's continued from last week, November 19th, 20th, our budget talks and deliberations. And before we move into the budget recap, I just want to welcome everyone back. Sorry for my voice, it's a little raspy still. And I want to thank everyone on administration for all your efforts that you put into this, as well as my colleagues on council. We've spent hours and hours. And although we are only now entering formal deliberations, administration has spent several months, and I want the public to know that they have prepared this recommended budget. And at last week, administration delivered detailed presentations. If you didn't tune in, then I encourage you to go back and tune into that and provided responses to the questions that we had as council, which we had many. And I know that there's considerable work has been put into this process. And we're going to continue that process. And I just want the public to know that this is the process of help today, being able to put forth motions, being able to see how we can get that number down to a number that is going to be both acceptable and manageable for the public. And that's our job today and tomorrow and the rest of the week, as much as time as we need. And I want to thank the members of the public as well who came out to the open house, both on Friday night and Saturday, and gave us your feedback, as well as those who emailed us. All of that was heard and valued, and we appreciate it, and they are all being considered, because at the end of the day, this is all about serving the needs of the public and making sure that we thrive in Beaumont. So I want to acknowledge the fact that there's been a lot of work put into this, both through the administration, each department, as well as our council members here. And I think it's clear from the questions council members asked last week that each of my colleagues have approached this work with thoroughness and diligence, and really a heart to serve the people of Beaumont. And as is the case with our province, with other municipalities, we are faced with balancing rising costs, inflation, reduced funding from other orders of government with the needs and expectations of our citizens. Nevertheless, I am confident that over these next few days that we are going to work together with administration and with each other's council to come to an agreement on what is the magic number that we need to come to. And so as we continue today, I'll take a few minutes to review the process. I think we're going to go over to Jay, but there will be an opportunity, just so you know how it goes today from the public who are tuning in, is that there will be an overview of the budget as well, so that we can kind of review that. We have scheduled 2 full days, today and tomorrow, and will aim to recess by 5 p.m. each day. If necessary, we'll also go on Friday, and that time will be determined, probably by Thursday midday. To start today, administration will provide comments on any follow-up items from the last week's presentations, and following that, the Director of Finance, Jay Bohachuk, will provide a recap of the recommended budget. There will be an opportunity for any clarifying questions from us. We will then begin deliberating any amendments, starting with the capital budget, followed by the operating budget, and then finally the utility budget. There have been some considerable time as well going into drafting motions, and so today council members will be able to put forth motions which will assist with moving the meeting along in an efficient manner. And once we have worked through the amendments to the budget, we'll then move into the final budget approval process, including consideration of the fees and charges bylaw and the first reading of a borrowing bylaw. And the final item on the agenda will address any subsequent motions to request more information that we need, or any reports from the administration, so that we can, again, continue to make decisions that are informed. This will allow council to address the matters that arise that may require additional understanding and work, but are not essential to passing the budget necessarily. We will have short recess throughout as needed. Obviously, we're going to have a lunch break and other breaks throughout the day. I also want to say that as we put forth motions today, those are all part of the process, and tomorrow, that those are all part of the process of being able to come to a number that is acceptable and agreeable, and that will help us to really bring that number down so that the burden, the taxpayers will not be overburdened, but to a number that I believe is going to be acceptable. We don't know what that number is today, but we're going to work to come to an agreement on that. So, and now I'll turn the next item on the agenda and invite Mr. Bohacek. I think you're number 8, are you? Good. And to introduce the follow-up items and move into the recap of the recommended budget, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I'm just going to expand a little bit on the process mechanics, just a few additional details for council before we get into the recap. So 100% correct in the recap. Well, any supplemental questions? 100%. When we get into the motions, just for council's understanding and the public's awareness, we have ordered them both the capital, municipal, utility, as you mentioned, but layered within that is also the concept of reductions, and then additions, and then balancing. Because really, at the end of the day, we'll need to get to a number, and so there's a couple of motions that I anticipate would be the final adjustments in order to get us to a number from that perspective. And then, in addition, as motions are presented, I will be speaking just to clarify what the financial impacts of the requested change would be, both to the current year, but also being aware of the multi-year piece. So there is a teeter-totter effect. Everything you take out of this year moves into next year. So there is a balancing act to be aware of as we look at these pieces. So just so that council is fully informed about the financial implications of the decisions as you move into debate on the items.
I appreciate that. That's important.
I see a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Moving into a question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bohacek. Just a question on that as well. Speaking to that balancing piece, capital items often have a reflective operational cost year over year. Will you be reminding us of what that is as well, to the best of your ability?
Through the mayor to the councillor. So the operating impacts of capital are usually in out years of the pieces. For the budget that we have tabled, we haven't where the focus has not been on the out year operating impacts of those incidences. We don't have a large, we're not building a fire station this year where we'd see the real-time firefighters coming on next year, for example. So we will be coming back in future budgets and clarifying what those operating impacts are. For the most part, the operating impacts of the capital that we're asking for are part of our routine maintenance and upkeep, so that's not really going to be an impact from that perspective as much as the operating changes we'll see the bigger swings in those changes.
Yeah, you betcha. And I asked that question because it isn't a build a bunch of sports fields budget, right? Like a build a bunch of sports fields budget would have operating impacts starting as soon as they're built, right? Whereas this capital stuff is really going to focus on repairs, maintenance, and ongoing. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. Jay?
Okay. So we'll go into the recap of the budget, and then we'll take any supplemental questions that the council might still have. So at a very high level, I'm just going to kind of do a brief high-speed version of the presentation I did on Wednesday. We did talk about a little bit of our journey. So where has Beaumont come from with the growth and the pandemic, hyperinflation that happened, the situation where we are now. So acknowledging our reality, our assessment ratios, the environmental challenges, as I mentioned, the inflation, the supply chain bubble didn't pop, and that Beaumont is at a crossroads. But we have the ability and the discipline to get through it. Where does that take us where we want to go? So it's really around, we want to get to a long-term financial sustainability. a place that has that, that consists of reliable, valued services. We want to take care of our existing infrastructure, and we desire reasonable, consistent, and predictable taxes going into the future. How do we plan to get there? So that's short-term pain, long-term gain, and it's all about right sizing. So this budget was representing what administration needs in order to deliver the services as they're expected today. That coupled with heavy emphasis on the strategic reserve and capital investment portfolio, so a lot of reserve management activity in this budget to set Beaumont up for success into the future generations. Reminded that household finances and municipal finances are quite similar in a lot of aspects, although there is a misconception around that CPI is an acceptable tax rate benchmark, and it's really only applicable to the operating side of the equation, not the revenue piece. We did go through a bunch of economic data that had, how the CPI has compounded over since 2019 to 22%, and the BCPI is at 35%, and that over the period of years, that's a weighted average of 25.7% that Beaumont has faced, but that our tax increases have not mirrored that, have been underfunded for a period of years in relation to that, and just through this recommended budget will we finally catch up, and we talked about some of the gap that leaves, and that gap is both financial and service gaps that we're not fully meeting service expectations across the board at 100%, that there are some erosion to the services due to funding constraints. We talked about our reserve position and how we don't have a reserve, not one of our reserves is in that desired balance range, that some of them are just below and some require serious attention that involves our reserve activity. We talked a little bit about reserve replenishment strategy and so how that would work and the compounding power of putting dollars in and how over time you reap significant benefits, and the strategy of how we would approach that. We talked a little bit about the grant and the deferred revenue, the levy projects, and that we will have to debt finance one of the levy projects in order to move that piece forward, and then collect levies over time to pay that off. So there is no burden on the municipality, but it does impact our debt position. We talked some about the debt considerations, the limits, that it's not a funding source, and that we should try to constrain ourselves to a 75 or 80% internal limit of what the MGA says, just so it's good practice to not fully, to max out your credit card as a metaphor. We talked about sustainability and the idea of how revenues and what's sustainable from a long-term sustainability perspective, and from least sustainable, grants, our own internal reserves as a funding source, franchise fees, investment income, but really the lion's share of the sustainable funds comes through user fees and charges, which is subject to the law of diminishing returns, that you just can't infinitely increase prices, and that the final option for a municipality is property taxes. I talked about the inherent disadvantage that municipalities are at compared to the province and the federal government, in that our revenue streams are static and don't inflate over time like the other revenue streams do for the other levels of government, and that often puts municipalities, we're seen as the bad guy. We're always having to raise taxes every year, and that's just the nature of the way the funding model works. Overall, we talked about how the overhaul of the budget process, we're really changing the way it's being delivered. As you see, the amount of conversations and presentations we've done over the last 2 days, or last 2 meetings, pardon me, really helping get the narrative out to the public. Talked about right-sizing the budget. At the consolidated level, really the increases, the revenues and expenses are on a one-to-one basis, but largely the biggest impacts is around the reserve management piece, is really where the biggest impact to the resident is, or to the tax rate. On the capital side, we did materially change the way that we presented the budget from I use the analogy of playing poker with your hand exposed. We're being more, we've rolled up the capital lists to an aggregate level in order to protect our ability to procure and not have it be at an inherent disadvantage by having the number that we anticipate spending being given to the contractors or the people who are bidding on the contracts. Largely the capital plan, some of the other pieces that we looked at was the current municipal renewal ask is the bare minimum requirement. It is not reflective of the asset need. This is about just the bare minimum of what we need to keep going, and it's more driven by financial constraint than actual asset need. We talked about how there's significant offsite levy projects, so there's transportation, large transportation project, a water project in 2026, and then we have a fire station and a reservoir in future years that will have a major impact on the municipality's debt position, as we would have to front end these projects and then collect levies over time. We did go through some regional comparators. I'm not going to go through that again, but we'll get to the end steps of, so all of that came to a conclusion of the overall 8.87% tax increase that is being requested, and that's broken down into three major components. So from an operating perspective, the ask is 1.85%, which is in line with CPI as a benchmark, is what the expense, we're managing our expenses to align from that perspective. 1.92% is around fiscal health, in that we depleted our operations stabilization and contingency reserve last year with the deficit, and we do need to have a replenishment strategy in order to build that up. That's the requirement for there. And then 5.1% was due to capital transfers, which is funding the capital plan, not on a one-to-one basis. So this is about putting money away for this capital plan and future capital plans and building that base. But that money will be required and will need to grow over the next few years as our asset demand increases and our understanding of what the particulars are. So what does that all shake out to? So over a multi-year perspective, currently, the recommended budget is 8.87% in 2026. It's currently 5.15% in 2027, 6.11% in 2028, and 6.58% in 2029. And these will be the numbers that I'll be updating as I talk about the theoretical impacts of what the change would be for any of the motions that come forward. So you're clear that I want to really be careful that we don't just teeter-totter it and turn 2027 into an 11% number by accident. We're trying to get the 26 down, right? So it'll be managing that whole piece. What does that 8.87 tax rate mean? So that it was a recap that on the municipal property taxes side, so for a sample house at $500,000, it's $305 a year, which works out to just over $25 a month in impacts. And the utility fee rate change works out to $185 a year and $15, give or take, on the monthly impact, for a total resident impact across the board of $490 a year or $41 a month. And with that, we would turn it over for council for any supplemental questions.
Thank you for that review. Appreciate it. Any questions before we move into it? Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, supplemental question for Director Melvin, just on the cost of a bylaw officer. So one of the questions I asked in the question period last week was the cost of a CPO, and I got 120 operating, 100 capital, and just wondering what that estimate would be for a bylaw officer, understanding everything you said last week around the difference in powers and such. Power scope, all that kind of stuff.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. Presently, you'd on average, it's probably 25% less, so somewhere in that just shy of 100,000 is what you would see. Noticing that your would have drastic different authorities on their compared to a community peace officer, and limits on what they can do. So, doesn't hiring a bylaw officer would not have any real direct impact on our current level of service.
And then the associated capital, would that be the same? It would be the same?
Same thing, less the radar that they would be permitted to use in the vehicle. So a radar is about 10K. So
Instead of 100, it's 90?
Yeah.
Just for figuring. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for that information.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Penrod?
Thanks, Mayor. Question for Ms. Raymond. I missed this piece last week when we were asking our questions. We talked quite at length about the plans to, the necessity to rewrite our plans with our neighboring municipalities, as well as land use bylaw and MDP. There's a fourth piece that's contemplated in your department, and that's around development of a new commercial area structure plan. I'm just wondering if you could speak a bit more to that and the benefit to doing that work in 2026 as opposed to, like, we've got a lot of work ahead of us this year. Why is that work critical this year? Thank you.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, I can answer a portion of that question and then maybe look to my friend in economic development to be able to talk about that, because we've talked about the need to bring on more non-residential land, that we don't have enough suitably sized parcels for larger development. So we do have smaller commercial sites available for more retail units, but we don't have anything larger if we wanted to bring on more of those business park type uses. We were trying to advance some of that. It does take time to be able to bring on land supply. One of the asks through that was that there is $350,000 proposed over 2 years to be able to complete the work on an area structure plan for a non-residential industrial park development south of 625, adjacent to 50th Street, 814. That work would help advance that. We've also applied for a grant through NRED, which is a matching grant. If that grant didn't come through, we would not be proposing doing this work because we require the matching grants to be able to actually fully fund the project on the technical reports and whatnot. So it is important to do. We've proposed it because of that importance and being able to utilize I guess the FTEs in the best way that we have possible to advance that conversation, and I'll let Jen maybe speak to that if she's got anything else to add.
You're good? Nothing to add? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. And just to clarify then, so administration is looking for authorization to do this work. The work actually going forward is pending results of a grant funding application? Did I understand that correctly? Yeah.
Yes, council would be looking for, administration would be looking for council to have that matching funds available. That would be grant requirement. However, I'll just say that if this did want to get pushed, it could be pushed out to a later year in relation to other priorities that council would have.
Yeah, we're always saying Beaumont needs more of everything yesterday, right? The trick that we're about this week is trying to triage what work we can do today that unlocks the most opportunities tomorrow and into the future. So thank you for that. I do have a couple more questions, Mayor. Do you want me to, do you want to go one by one?
Councillor.
Yeah.
Councillor Murray.
Sorry, just to piggyback on that question. We've applied for the grant, you said, for this particular ASP commercial development area. So we could bump it to next year only if we don't get the grant, or even if we get the grant, we could bump it to next year?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Murray. If we could bump it, I don't think applying for the grant binds council to including it in the budget. So it is something that's definitely possible. I will also say that we're going to put a plan on the land which will increase the value of the property, but it won't bring services to that site. So it's going to be one piece of that puzzle, but there's going to be a fair amount of work that's still required on the capital side to extend infrastructure there. So it won't be an immediate benefit. It helps set the stage, but just wanted to put that out there that this won't be, something that would be put in place 2 years from now and then be able to be built upon immediately.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Penrod.
Thank you. I can't quite see your name tag, but I'm looking at the end of the row here. I think it's Mr. I don't want to get it wrong. Arlovsky, is that right? So thank you. Last week I'd asked for some estimates of cost for transit service on the weekends. Remember, talked about a half a bus. And so just wonder if admin has today costs for Saturday and Sunday services respectively. And the piece that I didn't think to ask at that time is, can you also comment or speak to the severability of weekend service? Does our current contracts allow us to sever weekend service from weekday service, or are we bound kind of by the whole deal?
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, we'll have to explore that further with our transit provider and provide a report detailing the options of removing weekend service to give you a final number.
Thank you. And can you speak to the severability piece? Is that a known or unknown at this stage?
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, I would say right now that it's unknown.
Okay, so that's something that could potentially come back to us in a report as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Penrod. So just to clarify, it's unknown whether or not we can do that easily, or we're on contract for a certain period of time. Is that correct? Okay. Is that something that we can get access to fairly readily in terms of the information?
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, we are looking into, based on the questions you asked last week, we are looking into that. Currently, we're not sure of the impacts of pulling service out of the contract. However, previously we didn't have weekend service, so it is a possibility. We're just not sure of the indirect impacts of cost implications from a contract perspective. We have asked, we just haven't got the results of that yet.
Thank you. I'll yield.
Okay, thanks. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess just looking for clarity, are we just asking general questions across the board or pertain to operating capital?
Through the mayor to Councillor Tellenbos. This is if there's any questions that you have outstanding before you feel you're sufficiently armed to debate the budget.
Perfect, thank you. I think this question may be for Mr. Suter. Just looking for a little clarity as to what's intended for the Ken Nickel lobby renewal.
Who's going to speak to that? Sorry. Number 17.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tellenbos, we had an assessment done on the Ken Nickel that outlined areas that the building is beyond life. So some of in the lobbies, the flooring is beyond its expected life and contains hazardous materials such as asbestos. So the lobby renewals will include replacing the flooring. It'll also include some updated air curtains by the doors, since there's issues with cold airflow into the area, making the lobby really cold when they have a bunch of teams coming in at the same time. So it'll include that. It'll also include washroom renovations in both the lobbies that are both beyond the expected life.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Penrod, did you have another question?
Yeah, I do have a couple more questions. I'm just trying to make room for other councillors to lace in.
I'll put you on pause if other people want to jump in. How's
Sounds
that?
good, appreciate it. Yeah, so there was mentioned in the budget document in supplemental information, the work is not ready to bring forward as a budgeted piece yet, but the work on access control, developing an access control system for the BSRC, and was mentioned that we could ask for a verbal update. So this is me asking for that verbal update. Does that make sense? The work that I think it was Councillor Van Nieuwkerk had asked that we initiate to look at options for access control for spectators and users at the BSRC. So to bring forward some options.
Who would like to speak to that?
I know, I ask it here because it's something I heard a lot about this summer, is concern about thefts at that facility. And something I was happy to be able to say is that we were on top of it and making a plan. And so I just think it would be relevant and germane to the community to have whatever update is available. Thanks.
Okay.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Penrod, that is part of the larger access and security assessment that's underway with a larger plan as part of the 2026 budget to look at opportunities to increase security and access improvements across the entire city. At this point, we don't have specifics because the plan is still in process, but that is part of the scope to look at that, and we would bring that back at a later date for a council update. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, then Councillor Hyde.
Yeah, thank you. Previously, I wasn't thinking that we were going to be talking about the details of capital projects, but I think that I was mistaken in that level of detail. So I got a couple of questions about the park upgrades that are proposed in this budget, and just wondering if you could speak to what upgrades Nature Park and Milieu Park would each have, what are contemplated in this budget. I know we've redacted the financials for all the reasons that we've said, but you know, what is on the books, what is contemplated for each of those? Thank you.
Through the Mayor to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk, those parks are due for renewal due to the play structures need updating. So play structures and playground pod updates to meet CSA standards and so forth will be completed at those parks. As part of the scope, we'll also be looking at other items that are beyond renewal dates, and surrounds for the playground pod, the edges, the material inside, sometimes it's all, sometimes it's part of the playground structures depending on condition and considered safety concerns and so forth. That will be the focus of those two programs. Those two parks were identified as requiring updates, and so they've been put on the schedule for 2026.
Yeah, so when that type of an upgrade is completed, any users will instantly notice, like, oh, look, you know, there's a new playground. Oh, look, there's there's been work done here.
We would like to think so. And it also looks at, I mean, depending on the park, I don't know the specifics of the assets in the parks, but it'll look at if there's benches there, if there's tables, replacing those things. Sometimes signage, depends on the specifics. I don't have the exact list of the specific scopes for each park, but that would be what would be included. Thank you.
Appreciate the answer.
Thank you. Councillor Hyde.
Okay, so unpopular question, but one that's been asked by several members of the public, so I want it to be transparent. The question was, what if we don't pass this budget this week and we put it off until perhaps next month, so council has more time to examine all of the different nuances of the budget? The reason that was asked that is because people recognize the fact that there is new people that are on council and just brought in, and it's not a competency, it's not anything like that, but it's something that, over transparency, I've been asked a few times whether or not, why all of a sudden you get elected in and within the next month you're right into budget deliberations. So it can be daunting for some people and stuff like that. So what would be the ramifications of moving it into January, for instance, doing the deliberations now, coming back with questions in January, and then passing the budget then?
Through the mayor to Councillor Hyde. So there is a mechanic that allows for council to do that. It's called an interim budget, but it comes with a number of impacts and challenges. Probably the largest impact or change would be that we would be last to the trough, to use that metaphor, and that everybody else would be going to procurement, doing all of those pieces, securing contract stuff. We would be the last one to the table. Limited supply. We're not going to get the advantageous pricing of usually all of the suppliers we're full up, but we're willing to take you on for an extra charge because we'd have to contract that out themselves and things like that. So it is possible, but administration would strongly encourage council to not go down that avenue. There are mechanics to do that, but the potential impact across the board, so more than just our contract services, but across the board, uncertainty, we can't begin to move any of the initiative forward, any of the things that we plan to do forward, because we're not sure if the funding will be there for it. So again, we're delaying pieces, we're not getting things done, we're late to contract, we missed the construction season, right? There's a number of implications why that would not be to our advantage to do that.
Okay, yeah, again, it's a transparency piece that I've been asked by many members of the public, so I want to make sure that that's out there.
If I can just follow up, Councillor, so the question is entirely relevant and happens every year. To every municipality, the timing of the election and the timing of budget is the mechanic, and the principle is usually that the first budget that you will see is largely not yours, and the last budget that you will have impact won't be actually approved by this current council, because it'll be the legacy piece of you as this council exits their term, that the next council will inherit that council. So the first budget is generally not yours from that perspective, as it's usually responding to the direction that's been given through the whole year and all of the pieces that are priority, and so that's the piece that comes along. So there's generally opportunity for adjustments, but the public, or the expectation is that your first budget will be next year, when you have the full input and the strategic planning and all of those elements that you'll see that come in.
Yeah, I think that that's important to, and you said it quite succinctly, that this budget that's been approached before us is a product of everything that's been happening for the last 4 years or last 3 years, and the vision that the previous council had put forward. And I think that that's important to note, that we're deliberating on things that previous councils have put forward. So it's definitely put us in a little bit of a spot to catch up, I would say, more than anything. But we do have some great councillors that have come forward, and that's the great thing about having Steve and Phil and Nathan, that they've already seen a few budgets before they got here. So I appreciate them quite a bit. My next question is just in...
Sorry, just 1 second, Councillor Hyde. Councillor CAO Schwartz, did you want to jump in there?
Yeah, thank you. Just very quickly, and I think Jay and Councillor Hyde have communicated this, but I thought for the public's edification, this is probably the best and most organized budget that I've ever seen in my career. The workshop that we went through last week with council, the quality and quantity of questions, don't sell yourself short that you're sort of behind the 8 ball on this. I think there's a very good understanding amongst council about this budget. So I think you're in a great shape. And you both just said that, but it was a good question. I just want the public to understand that this budget has been dissected quite significantly by this council, and I think you're ready to go.
Thank you, CEO. So Councillor Hyde and then Councillor Natellenbos.
Yeah, I think that the budget process, going through what we did last week, dissecting everything, or having the chance to ask the questions last week has really made a difference, and it's given this council that extra 40 to 60 hours to work on it. And I think that it's really important that we are working towards that. And I do appreciate admin's input on everything. They've been as transparent as they can be, for sure, without showing our cards. Having said that, operations and fleet equipment replacement program, there's a big ask for 400 for I'm not putting how much it is, because I'm not going to say that. So, but there is some big asks in there. The backhoe and those, is that an end of life product, or is that something that's new?
So is that Mr. Lewicki?
Yes, through the mayor to Councillor Hyde. So I'm just looking at the specifics here. So the backhoe is a renewal, and one of the skid steers is a renewal. Actually, I should just say in general, any asset that is in the renewal program and is being put forward for replacement is beyond its lifespan. A lot of our equipment we have deferred, we have continued to operate it at an extremely high operating cost. The backhoe, it's been costing us a lot on an annual basis, and it's well past its due date. Same with the skid steer. So any renewal items as part of our asset management model are past due for replacement. Sorry, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the costs involved in some of these equipment and wondering whether or not it can last another year or not, or that type of thing. So, those are the kind of questions that I look at is to whether or not they are essentially have to be renewed. If they totally broken, are they totally done? Is it something that we can get by with for another year before, eventually there will be replacement, but I just don't want to be replacing equipment every year. That's what I'm saying. And we will have to, obviously.
Yeah, and it's a very good question. I think what we found in the past is we have been doing that. We have been pushing renewals beyond, and what we're seeing is an extremely high increase in the operating costs on the equipment that has been delayed for renewal. So that's, you kind of, if you defer, your operating costs go up. If you replace, your operating costs go down, but then you have to deal with that capital impact. So understanding there's impacts to both decisions.
Okay, thank you.
And we have been trying really hard to manage the balance between replacements and deferrals. And because of the size of our fleet, there's likely not going to be a year where something doesn't come up for renewal. So we're trying to balance that and manage that program as effectively as we can.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to offset end-of-life cycles so that we're not looking at 2 or 3 or 4 large purchases per year as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 every year, sort of an idea, so that we're not like these things on the list. All of them will become up for renewal pretty much at the same time again. And to me, that's we need to make sure we manage that over time as opposed to trying to ask for it all every 5 years or every 4 years. And that's just
the other thing that we're finding with deferrals is because of that increased operational cost, it does and can impact service levels because we're seeing more downtime on pieces of equipment, especially during, as you can imagine, during snow season. We have to have our equipment up and running. If we have 2 graders go down, we've got some serious problems. And you could say, well, we could rent one, but every grader's out there doing the work, right? So it's important for us to have a reliable fleet that we can rely on to meet service levels.
And just last question here. I had asked a question about perhaps moving from full snow removal to a blading program. I know that we had talked about extra cost and what that looked like, but I didn't really kind of get an answer as to what that looked like as opposed to full snow removal and blading for smaller ditches and things like that. Have you had a chance to look into that at all?
No, thank you for the question. We did look into that, and I'm going to pass this over to Mr. Pisantini right away here, but we did do some analysis on that. I think the answer is a bit complicated, but I'm going to let him speak to what he's looked into and what that might look like. Thank you.
You good to go?
Yeah. Through the mayor to Councillor Hyde, we did look into this into the brief time we had available to us. Dedicated blading programs do exist in Alberta and do exist at other municipalities, but they don't exist in conjunction with snow removal. So the option to blade would really change our entire maintenance philosophy. Snow is a little bit different than blading gravel roads. There's different mechanisms we have to go through, and it brings up a lot of questions. So to directly answer your question, one full blade of priority 3 to 5 roads, so all our collector roads, residential and cul-de-sacs, one full blade would be about $90,000 per season, carrying a 20% variance risk depending on current weather and conditions and snow accumulation. That total is across our 67,500 linear meters of road, so that doesn't take into the parking lanes and the road widths. Municipalities like Spruce Grove, St. Albert and Calgary do utilise blading, some more successful than others. In the past, not currently, St. Albert and Spruce Grove have done a full blading program that has loaders and skid steers follow the blading to kind of clear windrows at residents' driveways, business driveways. And Calgary does it to maintain a snowpack because they don't do any full clear. So these also have significant operational impacts when it comes to spring. The biggest one is, where do we put the snow? If we're piling on boulevards, do we have to come back, double handle it, then pull it to the middle from the edge? And then definitely in spring, one of the biggest complaints we've had is spring flooding. When we do a blading program, we're covering a majority of our 1,400 plus catch basins. So that's a full crew in spring that can't focus on sign repair, pothole repair, sweeping, that has to go around and clear catch basins, and the residents will see increased flooding. To provide a little bit of context to our ruts and what we're trying to solve, so historical data, we've found only 5 service requests since January 2021 that specifically mention ruts in the road. However, to address the issues that we're seeing, we would like to propose 2 things. One is the operations team is going to pilot a more proactive approach this year. We're going to look at long-term forecasting and predict when our snowpack triggers are going to be met. Realistically, what this looks like is we're going to mobilize 2 to 3 weeks earlier. The same money, the same response time, the same crew. It's just by proactively anticipating when the snow is coming. If we're middle of January, we know it's going to come. We're going to get out there and do our residential clear a little bit earlier. And secondly, as a part of our program, just increased education around the snow storage methods for residents. So a lot of our ruts, one of the drivers is we're shoveling from sidewalks and driveways onto the road. That snow load has presence of ice, melt, rock chip, sand from intersections that we put down, and it softens the road pack in front of residents' houses. So we would like to increase education about storing that on the boulevard, on the front lawns of our houses. We could see a major benefit in that. So to summarise, $90,000 per blade for our residential. Blading would happen on average probably 4 times a month at that stage. So if you quantify that from snow season, theoretically is October 15 to April 15. We've been very lucky this year that no snow at the end of November. Those would be the rough costs. As well as, if you wanted to look at this as a full-time option, it would change our philosophy completely from snow removal once per year to the constant blading.
Yeah, and I think that, there's some options within that. Do we have the capacity right now to do the blading, or we would have to purchase, or would we contract that out? Where are we at with that?
There is no capacity within the team. Not only is there no capacity time-wise, but there's also no equipment to perform this. The blading program and our snow removal program cannot cohabitate. So this cost will be completely contractor driven, which is why there's such a big variance on it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. We're going to go to Councillor Tellenboss and then Councillor Murray.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question around the Civic Center. Obviously, council had dedicated 100K to put this report together. I'm just curious what happens to the value of this report if it's not funded. So if we don't fund the 111 million in the next 2 to 3 years, what value does this 100,000 report still hold down the road? And I think maybe Mr. Lewicki.
Oh, go ahead.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tellenboss, the level of detail in this report is very high level. We didn't go into any preliminary or detailed design, obviously. We indicated previously that would be a significantly larger scope. This report is very conceptual. It provides an idea of what we could do. I think that this idea could be picked up at any point in time and moved forward from that perspective. It could be updated. New ideas may come up. It's possible that it could get, maybe there's a new location that wants to be considered. But I think that the level of detail provided in that Civic Center excerpt in the budget report provides a platform for further discussion and engagement to move forward with the Civic Center project sometime in the future. Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. I guess I'm just curious about, yeah, if we don't use it, are we basically going to lose it? Like, what would the next investment be 3-4 years down the road?
Yeah, fair enough. I don't think it's lost. I think it's something that it's a vision, which I think we had indicated previously that we'd probably like to see more engagement on it. It's one idea that we came up with based on the reports that were presented or the reports that were done previously as a historic reports on different needs and land uses and such. In the future, we'd be looking at probably more engagement from the public and so on to see, does this idea meet expectations? And would we move forward with this idea, or would it deviate from some point? So I think it's a decision point where we take it and we see, is this the right way? And then move on from there. And then you would go into preliminary design and potentially detailed design and construction from there. But it's a long process and it's a costly one, as obviously the estimate has indicated.
Perfect, thank you. And then my next question will be for Jay. I'm just curious what the magic number would be for basically borrowing costs that we're paying right now. If we were to, instead of transferring to reserves, but actually transfer to debt to pay off some debt, is there a certain number where we're able to reduce the carrying cost by about 1% or that 300,000 per year, if that makes any sense?
Through the merit of the councillor, I would need to take that away and do some work to figure out what that number is. I don't have a magic number or even a guess at this moment of what that would be.
Are you able to provide a very vague guesstimate that I won't hold you to, just so I...
Nope.
Nope, okay. I think so. So I guess, can I ask for that at some point, or is that gonna?
So I will work to see what my team can provide, but I don't know what time frame of when that will come back. So I'll see what, maybe at a break at lunch, I can have an actual conversation with my team and figure out where it's at, but I'll let you know.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Murray, you're next, and then Councillor Penrod.
Thank you. I'm kind of switching gears here a little bit and looking at the CAO office. And I know we talked about this last week in regards to having a dedicated grant coordinator. And I know during those discussions last week, we were talking about having that pretty conservative estimate of 50,000 as the grant. But I'd just like to clarify again, that person will be working for grants for other departments as well. And do we have some idea of those possible grants and the impact sort of overall?
17, thank you.
Thank you. The estimate that we provided for potential revenue for the grant coordinator was for all competitive grants. So yeah, the grant coordinator would submit or would support all departments in applying for grants. Last year we had over $250,000 in grants that we had brought in, and we're doing quite well this year as well. So that revenue would be as a whole.
Yes, go ahead.
Sorry, just another question. So do we expect then, do we have an idea of whether that number would go up quite significantly, or is that just maintaining potentially the grant level at 250 for the year?
We put in.
Are you asking whether or not that made a significant difference to bring that person on, like from year over year?
Essentially, yeah, just trying to get an idea of, I know that grants are not guaranteed, but what's our maybe best hope for that?
So we had put in 50,000 for revenue each year for the grant coordinator. That it's a very conservative estimate. Like you said, all the grants are competitive. There's no guarantee that we get them. And the other thing I would consider is just that the grant programs from the province and the federal government are always changing. And so some of the grant programs that we would be applying for now might not necessarily be available in future years. So that 50,000 was a very conservative estimate on what we think this person could bring in. I do believe that it would be higher, but it's hard to bank on.
Did you want to speak to that, Ms. O'Neill?
Sure, I'll just supplement with one more item. Ultimately, we're hoping this position is beyond cost recovery. As CEO mentioned during the last meeting, we continuously revisit our program, so if we see that this isn't working out, then we would look to change the program as well.
If I may also add, Madam Mayor, just from a budget perspective, the preferred approach is to take a conservative revenue adjustment and have a positive windfall at the end of the year with recovery rather than adjust the budget to reflect a more aggressive revenue recovery and that not materialize and end up in a deficit position. So I would strongly recommend not materially moving that up into a really aggressive number just to bring the tax rate down.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. Councillor Penrod and then Councillor Cole-Smith.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a quick comment on I was happy to see the report on the Civic Center, that high-level report that Councillor Natellenbos talked about. In my mind, that was just really about transparency. So until that report came, a lot of that work that had been done previously around that was all locked up. So it was all things that had reports that had been received in camera. And so if nothing else, this report has brought that to the public and created that transparency on work that has been funded and done previously. So thanks for that. Thanks to Councillor Hyde actually highlighted my last question that I just wanted to ask around kind of procurement and things that are budgeted and brought forward, just to illuminate the amount of work that happens already, but from administration before the proposed budget is even brought forward, as far as what's prioritized and what isn't. The piece that am still missing from that I was kicking myself last week that I didn't ask because it's been so top of mind for most of this year is, can you just speak to, and this is probably for Mr. Lewicki, can you speak to the impact on tariffs to the budgeting process to date, and what strategies has administration used to mitigate this threat or instability? Is there any thought about holding off on some purchases with the hope that maybe tariffs disappear or reappear, or what day is it, what hour is it?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Penrod, thank you for the question. It is, and it's valid. We struggle with this. We definitely do look at timing of purchases to try to offset. We look at where supplies are coming from if we can. In some cases, we have no choice but to order from U.S. suppliers only because the equipment comes from there and there is no Canadian supplier. But we definitely do look for alternatives to try to save costs We do competitive price evaluations on more expensive equipment parts, and it's been difficult to predict because things change sometimes on a daily or hourly basis with this, and it has impacted our fleet and maintenance repair costs for sure. What we're also trying to do with new fleet purchases for renewal and for growth is to look at more friendly equipment in the sense of what does it cost to service this equipment? Not just how good is the equipment at what it's supposed to do, but what are those maintenance costs and how well can we get that serviced? Are the parts more expensive? Can we get generic parts? Can we, different ways to find savings to run that program? Thank you.
You good? Councillor Penrod? Okay. Councillor Van Newkirk? I'm sorry, Councillor Cole-Smith.
Thank you. I think a question for Chief Melvin. It appears there are 2 patrol vehicles in the replacement program, and then further down below, 1 in growth. How many vehicles do we have? And what would be the impact of, perhaps deferring one of those replacements? Is there one scheduled for next year, or what does that look like?
Through the mayor to Councillor Cole-Smith, we have 4 in the fleet. So there's 4 CPO positions with 4 vehicles. 2 are slated for replacement. One of the vehicles is on its second engine, and the other one is starting to cost us more. It is coming on 10 years old. Our current policy and standard practice is to try to replace your fleet vehicles every 7 years. So we have 2 scheduled for replacement this year. Obviously, the one that's a 2012, which is on that's the one that's on the second engine and other problematic problems. But also the technology inside is very difficult. Many manufacturers don't continue to support equipment that is beyond that 7 to 8 year range, especially in emergency services. So that becomes problematic across not only the CPO fleet, but also the fire fleet. The one that is in growth is attached to that CPO level 1 position in the budget for growth. So there's 2 for replacement and 1 for growth. The 2 replacement would just replace the 2 that we have. With our contingent still at 4, and if we get a growth, then it means we would have 5 officers and 5 vehicles.
Okay, thank you. And maybe you can't say, but how often are they all on at the same time?
Through the mayor to Councillor Cole-Smith, it's very sporadic. We have one that's currently having some electrical communication issues between computers and radar, and makes the vehicle kind of not function properly. So it needs to get scheduled into a shop that can't be handled here. It needs to go into Edmonton to where things are to the folks that are the service representatives for that equipment. And then it depends on if we need parts. So sometimes we've had vehicles out in excess of 3 to 4 weeks. And that's just on the emergency package side. We've also had issues where your typical maintenance, transmissions and water pumps and a variety of things that go wrong with older vehicles. So nothing. We try to keep the fleet up as best as possible through our internal department within infrastructure. But we also do use local business to try to keep the fleet serviceable for the officers. So.
And how often are all of the vehicles on the road at the same time? Sorry.
That will depend on shift schedules. Ultimately, if we have casuals that were to come in and pick up a shift anywhere during of a day, you may see 2 to 3 vehicles in a cross shift rotation where somebody's got a 1 or 2 hour crossover between the next person that's coming on for the next shift. And then obviously the supervisor, who's a Monday to Friday, So really, you're down to 3 vehicles for the rotating staff. So there is vehicles that are there if there's no staff on, but we don't have any spare supplement vehicles that are sitting there, and it's not something that you can go out and rent or lease. You have to use your own fleet, so.
Okay, thanks. So 3 on the road, at the same time, it sounds like.
Pretty standard during the day.
5 vehicles, 5 officers. I'd say whatever brand that one that's on the second engine, maybe think twice before getting that again. Thanks.
True, I don't think we're gonna go down the road of a 3rd engine. I think that would be not well money spent, so.
Thank you. I'm just gonna ask a few questions, then we'll go to Councillor Murray. So, and some of this, let me know if it needs to be in closed camera, but in terms of, we talked about evaluation programs and things like that. So a few things just for the purpose of transparency as well for the public. A question that has come up considerably is about the lighting in Four Seasons, the light on the island. And I know that there has been some reporting on that, some looking into the cost of that, the functionality of that. I would like someone to speak to that if that is too costly to repair, to function, to operate. Has there been any exploration of other options in terms of lighting so that the Four Seasons Park can actually be used in Four Seasons? Who would like to speak to that? Lewicki? Okay, Mr. Lewicki.
Through the mayor, so the light at Four Seasons Park on the island is definitely something that we have assessed. The location of that light is unfortunate. It is very difficult to access. We don't even know why it's not working. It could be a bulb, it could be something in the wiring. We can't get to it because it's on an island. So we have to either wait for the ice to get thick enough that we can get a crane across, or a barge, or some sort of device to get over there to get up and assess it. At this point, we have left it because we didn't feel that the costs justified the repair. We're looking at repair costs just for the light of $30,000 plus, just for one light. And so this is something that we have decided to leave for the time being, and in the future look at different lighting in the park. And as part of a planning exercise, we look at doing a master plan in the park at some point where we can plan more effectively the aspects of the park.
So did I hear you quickly, just the fixture is $30K for the light, or are you talking about a light bulb?
Through the mayor, basically just to get over and assess it. We don't even know what the repair is at this point. The idea is that we would have to get some serious equipment over there to assess, and the estimate was about $30,000 to do that.
Okay.
So we just felt that there was more effective ways to spend operating dollars than $30,000 to fix a light. So we had basically left the light, which also impacts skating at the Don Sparrow skating surface, which is also a problematic function for us as far as safety on maintaining a natural ice surface. So that is something we were also not planning to do for 2026.
Okay, thank you for that. So it says, so apparently since February of 2024, that light has not been working.
That is my understanding.
Okay, correct. So would you agree that the Four Seasons Park is probably one of the most used parks in terms of trail system in our city?
I don't have that information. I would suspect that is probably the case.
So just going back to my other question, thank you for that background story, history, is so it sounds like you haven't really explored, or administration hasn't really explored any options of putting other lighting for safety purposes of use of that trail system even?
At this point, we have not entertained looking at further lighting in the park. Lighting can be a very costly endeavor when we're talking about lighting an entire park or pathway through a park. We could be looking at hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, depending on how much lighting we wanted to put through the park. There's also servicing of the electricity and so on, transformers and such that we would have to consider. It hasn't been considered as part of our current projects, but it is something that could be considered in the future.
Okay, thank you. I'm asking this question again for transparency for the public because it has come up numerous times about safety in terms of that park. It is very well trafficked and, walking the dogs, running, and there's different times that safety has been an issue with coyotes and with just not having lighting properly, especially in the wintertime after 4 o'clock. We don't really have a lot of daylight light going on, so it's definitely something that I feel in the future we need to look at in terms of maximizing that because it is a Four Seasons park, and to be able to help make that a safer place would be great.
Thank you.
I would at some point like to have some kind of a report on what are some options to be able to at least start the place of making it a safer place for our community to go.
Through the mayor, one thing that was done, I don't have the date handy, but I know that there was a lighting study done for the city here last year, year before, I don't recall. We were going to use that and then also consider overall programming of the park and looking at more of a master plan study for Four Seasons Park, and that would include all the spaces that are currently utilized and assets in the park that are needing renewal. It would look at pathways, connections, upgrades, things like that. It wasn't part of the scope for this year, but it is something that we were perhaps contemplating for next year.
Okay. Would we be able to have access to that report if the lighting report you said?
The lighting, yeah, it should be public access. We can definitely get a copy of it to council for sure.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you. Switching gears to now the recreation programs in terms of usability, and if has there been an evaluation done on certain times that are maybe less used, that is costing us a lot more? Just kind of want to get a pulse on that again for public transparency. After hours, for example, is there certain recommendations in terms of the pool area or recreation in terms of changing the hours to make it more efficient? Oops, wrong one. Give you number 7 there. Go ahead.
There you go. Yeah, good morning, Mayor. Thank you for the question. Yeah, that is an ongoing conversation that we always look at programs, whether we're trying to meet a cost recovery target or whether the attendance is not there, we would change gears. That's kind of an ongoing thing. Specific to aquatics, you would see in your package there was some service level suggestions to potentially reduce hours of service and what the impacts could be and what the cost savings would be estimated at. So that's something we have looked at, obviously specific to aquatics. But generally speaking, in the rec programs that we deliver, whether it's through contracted fitness programs or community programs or whatever we're offering as a drop-in, whatever the case may be, if it's not well attended or we're not meeting our minimum thresholds, we would definitely pivot on that. But it's kind of a consistently changing landscape when it comes to that stuff. What may not work this month may work in 6 months. But it's something the team's always looking at. So yes.
Okay, so the recommendations, it would have less impact necessarily on the community, but more impact from a financial point of view.
Yes, sort of a combination. When we look at it changing anything, obviously, if it's not well attended, then you could deduce that it's not going to be much of an impact. Or conversely, if it's significant cost, how many folks are affected? So it's sort of that ongoing evaluation that we would do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not something I could speak specific to one item today, whether it's better today or worse in the past or tomorrow. So because it's an evolving landscape.
Okay, thank you for that. So my last question is in regards to, is there any regulations in place, or are there any regulations in place that would prohibit us from, for example, charging a fee to a non-resident using our facilities, with the exception, of course, of Liberty County?
No, there's no regulation, Mayor. That is something that is, I think, comes sort of bubbles up every once in a while, and I think in the region, when you look at it, those restrictions are not applied, generally speaking, in the industry. Usually, if you go into Edmonton, you can buy a membership, you can do whatever you want for the same cost. That is something council can direct us to look at further, if whether some options and some environmental scans on that. But I know we've sort of looked at that periodically in the past and trying to evaluate what is the actual problem we're trying to solve. Sometimes there's anecdotal conversations that go on in the community, but it may or may not be a consistent problem if it is even a problem. So that's how I would answer that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's important to know what the problem is that we're trying to solve, right? Awesome. Okay, thank you, Councillor Murray.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. One is going back to the Four Seasons lighting. Do we know, has the bulb ever been changed there?
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, my understanding is the bulb has not been changed. There was, and I think the idea behind that light was it provided a cost-effective solution to light the park all with one standard. But the cost to replace that fixture or service that fixture is definitely a problem.
Mm-hmm.
So it hasn't been changed that I'm aware of. And so, yeah, it's a challenge to accommodate.
Mm-hmm. Okay. My next question is talking about our sort of relationships with other cities, and we were talking about some of the capital projects in purchasing, and I wonder if we've ever considered, perhaps City of Edmonton is buying a bunch of vehicles or equipment, and we could piggyback on them. Is that something that we've ever looked at?
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, that can be very challenging from a procurement perspective. Have we looked into it? I wouldn't say directly, but we can definitely look at that, but I don't believe that would be a viable solution.
Can you just, like when you say challenges, do you mean more like because of maybe timing, or like what, a little more specific, if you don't mind?
I'll let Mr. Boychuk take that one.
Thank you.
So through the mayor to Councillor Murray. So through our procurement program, we look at all sorts of options, and there are things like Canoe, which is a pre-vetted vendor list that is based on meets the treaty compliance and all the rules, but it's a pre-vetted vendor list that enables city or municipalities to purchase quickly. There's other things that sometimes there are purchasing consortiums, right? So our purchasing group does look at, our procurement group does look at any and all opportunities reviewed on a regular basis to see if there is elements that could be leveraged, group purchase. So let's say that there's in several municipalities in the region that a few people need fire trucks, big ticket item. Hey, we're looking around, we're seeing if there's an opportunity to collectively do that. So there are challenges and to independently look at one-on-one, but our procurement office is always looking at the environment and if there's opportunities for cost savings through volume purchase, things like that, with collaborating with other municipalities. So.
Okay. One last question that I have, and it's another sort of collaboration type thing, but more on the operating side, is that I'm just curious where we have the field house, similar to a lot of the EMSA field houses in the city. We have to show a pass in order to get in. And I know that that's not something that we're necessarily set up for right now, but is that something that we have looked at? Like, I don't know exactly how those passes cover some of the cost of running those, but maybe that's something, because I know we get to use our field house for games sometimes and practices with the soccer teams and that we've been involved with. So just curious how that, or if it's been looked at before.
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, I'm not sure that I'm understanding that question, if I'm being honest. Typically, the field house is rented or it's programmed. If you're speaking about spectators, or are you speaking about participants?
Sorry, spectators specifically, because that's what, when you're going into the other soccer facilities in the city of Edmonton, you do have to show a pass.
Right, we do not have that currently. One model that we do sort of support would be when Metro Athletics, which is the high school program for football program, for example, when they rent a game, either it's a Beaumont team or a 2 out-of-town teams would rent our multi-use turf field. So they would charge admission for that particular game, and that would be something that they do. They just rent the field from us for that activity, and they would charge admission as part of their program. But we do not currently do that with spectators coming to our facilities, whether it's the arenas or whether it's the field house. You know, Junior B would charge admission to their game, but that's not a city program, so they're just a typical renter, right? So.
Okay, so you're saying basically any of the ones that are generally charging an entrance fee are doing it on their own, like for their own organization?
Typically, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Hyde, and then Councillor Talonboss.
Excellent. Well, I'd be really upset if you took down the Cormorant Tower in the middle of the island. That's where they all sit and eat all the fish. So I have no problem taking that tower down, to tell you the truth, if it's not being used and we need to decommission it. So at the same token, if we decommission that tower, perhaps move it to somewhere where it's more accessible, or has there been study done into that, to just decommission it, move it off the island so we don't have to ever worry about putting a basket or hiring a contractor to go up and change the light? Is that something that's been looked at?
Through the mayor to Councillor Hyde, at this point, we've just left the light. It stopped working. We've just left it. We haven't looked at relocating it. I suspect the cost of relocating existing infrastructure would probably outweigh just replacing it altogether with a more suitable fixture. I'm not sure how old it is, but I'm sure that the technology should probably be upgraded if we were to put it in a different location. But I would say we haven't looked at just relocating the light. As I indicated previously to the mayor, the idea was to look at a more comprehensive strategy for park programming, lighting, and paths. I think the idea would be is that this more comprehensive study would even consider, are the pathways in the right place? And so if we start now looking at existing infrastructure and say, hey, we're going to put lights along the path, we may find that, oh, we don't like where this path is, but we've already put lights by it. So we're trying to think of this more inclusively as the mayor indicated. This is probably this is our signature park in the city. And so having a comprehensive plan to look at programming and aspects of the park would be something we should look at, as opposed to trying to just do piecemeal pieces. We might not get the best product.
And understand that. Has there been any talk about, I mean, the private sector uses guys to go up towers all the time to change lights for airplane and such, like airplane warning lights. Cost would be much less, but at least if you got somebody to go up and check the light and see if it's just a wire's out of place because the cormorants decide to eat the wire, or if the light itself is not working. I know it's not the best way to go around it, but right now we're just taking shots in the dark and we don't know what's wrong. So, I mean, and then there is those contractors available that do go up those towers all the time, all over the place. And we don't have to do a basket. We don't have to do that. He has his own WSA and everything like that, WSA, and let them go and do it. And let's check this out and get some facts before we make any more of these decisions. I think that that's really important to do something like that. And my last comment on that, with the regards to the upgrades to the nature park and the Milo Park, just looking at those two, and you had mentioned they were CSA certification. As soon as you touch any part of that park, you're going to have to bring the whole thing up to whatever that CSA certification is, right? So I know how that goes in many ways. So why don't we shift our focus to upgrading the spray park? And the reason I say that is so many more people are asking about the upgrade to the spray park. It's also a tourism, economic development portion of it. It's a big component for our city. And I'm not sure if you've done a study on just upgrading it. I know that there was a study done not too long ago about recycling the water. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about doing maybe shifting the money that's there over to the spray park. And would that be substantial enough to do a proper upgrade, painting, maybe a new feature, something like that within the spray park? I don't know if you've done that study yet.
Through the mayor to Councillor Hyde, I don't have specifics on what we could improve at the spray park. I understand that it's getting close to the end of its life cycle. And I think that would be also, as we talked about Four Seasons, looking at a comprehensive plan just to see what makes sense in that space. Does the spray park stay there? Does it relocate? There's aspects to consider. There's definitely potential to look at spray park upgrades. I don't know what that would look like at this point. I do know that a lot of the components probably could justify replacing a lot of them based on age and usage. But we could definitely look at doing a spray park upgrade if that's what council wishes to do. At this point, I don't have costs for that, though. I don't know what that scope would look like, and I don't know what those costs would be.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that. I'm just looking at, I know how much playground equipment costs. It's not cheap, especially when you get into certification and everything else goes crazy. So, and we talk a lot about end-of-life products here, end of life, but there are ways for us to extend life as well. That's what I'm looking at is the upgrades to the spray park to extend its life, not to replace the entire thing or move it or anything like that. That's going to cost significant dollars. I'm just looking at what we would get dollar for dollar if we moved that cost for those other two parks into the spray park. And I know you can't give that answer right away. I know you haven't done the study, and that's why I asked that first about the study. But it's something I think that more people are asking for that upgrade than they're asking for those other parks.
Oh, I'm sorry. CAO Schwartz, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, we've got a previous report on the spray park that we'll send, but my comment was more around process. Want to try and get us back to asking questions for clarification, and we're getting into tossing ideas that really should be done by motion and then debated. So I'm just trying to get us back on track a little bit.
Thank you for that.
And I appreciate that. The reason I asked for that is because if I'm going to make a motion to not fund the other two parks, then I'm trying to get some clarification of how I can move the funding as opposed to just kill the funding. And so that's where that came from. And it is about, I'm trying not to get in the weeds, obviously, but I'm just saying, okay, a reallocation of funds, how can we work that right now? And that was my whole premise about it. If I'm going to vote against the ones in the one park, I want to make sure it goes to a different one, is what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
All right, we're going to move to Councillor Natellenbos and then over to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Another question for you, Mr. Lewicki. Just in regards to the ice rink shack, I believe that's what we refer to it as here. Bellevue Rink Shelter. Obviously, this is temporary in nature. I'm just wondering if we've assess the pros and cons of something more permanent. And I'm not talking about an actual building itself, but maybe some kind of CCAN concept or us purchasing a trailer that could stay there permanently. I know there was an assessment done on an attachment to Ken Nickel. I'm not talking to that extent. I'm just looking at potentially how we could get rid of that expense of the rental and have a capital asset that we could have in place.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tellenboss, thank you for the question. I think it's a good question. Currently, yes, we rent a small trailer that's heated. Our permitting process right now doesn't allow it to be permanently there, and Ms. Raymond may speak to that in a bit here. A lot of the costs involved with renting and placing a temporary structure on that site, we have to crane it in, we have to connect it, and then we have to disconnect it and crane it out. So a lot of the cost is involved with that. If ownership wouldn't help with those connection craning costs, obviously, because we'd still have to do it. We could store it in our yard, but we'd still have these costs. One thing we were looking at, though, was if we continue to put the shelter there, which is what we're proposing this year, we would be looking next year to say, okay, can we keep this here permanently? Is there a rationale for purchasing one and just having it there, and can we keep it there? I know there's challenges around that. It's not a permitted use for the space to have that type of structure there permanently. But that would be something we'd look at. The first step was just to make sure we had funding to actually have a shelter in place. And then we'd be looking at, okay, like rent one next year or right away, right? We try to get it out there for the skating season, and then looking at future options for purchase and whether or not we can keep it there permanently.
Perfect. So I guess next question, was the use changed on that land? Because we did have a permanent structure there.
The structure that was there before was a permanent structure. This trailer is not a permitted use.
Let Paul speak to the project for the rink. Maybe he might have some information. We didn't change the use.
So I guess in short, how come we can't put a CCAN there that's insulated and we have all the connections there on some steel piles?
Yeah, but he's asking about the permitting side of it, right? Sorry.
Ms. Raymond.
Thank you. Through that, when we did the rink project for Bellevue a number of years ago, I think there were some site constraints there, led to the trailer being placed there on a temporary basis. I would need to look into that. We haven't done that pros and cons on whether or not that could be a permanent structure, but we are able to do that and provide that information back to council. It would need to meet the guidelines in the land use bylaw, the regulations, but we would need to evaluate that. And there's probably options for consideration, but we haven't looked at it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, I just wanted to go high level on process a little bit here. We're at a point where we have been invited to ask clarifying questions, and we've been close to debate with administration. We are asking questions now that have previously required motions in council to see if council supports administration putting the level of effort into gathering those information and options. And then we followed one item quite far down into a level of information that usually comes following a motion. So for me, I'm not hearing a whole bunch of clarifying questions left. I don't see microphones on. So for me, I think we're probably time to move into questions. So I just want to really add that perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. I am going to say we're going to break for 5 minutes and then resume. 10 minutes? Okay, 10 minutes. Back at 10:45. All right, are we still live, Stacy? We're live? Thank you for that discussion in the previous session. We're going to continue on here. I believe we're going to go to the municipal capital budget discussion. Is that correct?
Thank you, Mayor. So yes, we would be moving into motions pertaining to capital at this point.
Okay. So I'm going to defer to Madam Clerk in terms of the first motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have a large number of motions. So I'm just going to go in order in which these motions were brought to me. So when the councillor sees their name up on the screen, then I'll ask them to move the motion and then we can open up for debate. Actually, I want to stop that. Before the motion is moved, when you see your name, our finance director will speak to the impact and then we'll have the councillor move the motion after that.
Okay, just one second. I have two councillors. Did you want to say something before we go into the motions? Councillor Penrod?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. If it would feel appropriate, I do have just a brief opening statement to the budget deliberations proper. I know you gave one off the top today, and I know Councillor Van Nieuwkerk had prepared one last week, and I'd just like to have that opportunity to speak briefly to that. Thank you. So this is not a feel-good budget, but it is a budget that will resonate in our community for decades to come. This council has been tasked with the difficult work of receiving the excellent and careful work prepared across months by our staff, receiving it and needing it until it's something we can commend to our neighbors today as something that's in their best interests, while also holding close the responsibility to steward our community going forward. I use the metaphor of kneading intentionally, because just like when making bread, it's possible to overwork the dough and end up with something less than palatable after things are baked. Today and in years to come, we're dealing with generational forces and challenges. We have the opportunity to meet these challenges together. I like the language that Mr. Bohachek has used, with courage. To meet these challenges and opportunities together with courage and compassion. Along the way, I'll be using these three lenses to weigh arguments and make decisions. Prioritize spending that unlocks opportunities for residents and businesses. Prune spending that's outdated or ineffective, and protect critical core services and focus on fiscal sustainability. That's what we've heard our task is from you as a community. Each of us behind this table have pledged in the recent election to do a better job of listening to residents. And as we proceed today, for me, that looks like listening carefully as arguments and motions are put forward and debate is engaged in, and to speaking sparingly to both you, my colleagues, and our administration team. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Penrod. Councillor Van Nieuwkerk?
Yeah, thank you. Just looking to Mr. Bohachek and LLS just for a little bit of support on this question. So capital motions, capital items, capital projects. If motions start coming forward to start dissecting proposed capital projects, we've been provided with the information in camera to say, X number project is 100,000, right? And if a motion comes in to say, I only want to do half that project, or tell me all the pieces of that project and I want only this piece of that project to go, how will we navigate going in and out of camera to do that? Because I won't be prepared to vote on those motions until I understand the financial impact of like doing 1/3 or half, or if there was 5 things to do under this project for 100,000, we're only going to do one of them. Does that mean it's still 90,000, or does that make it 50? Like help me understand how we're going to navigate if people start dissecting capital projects?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. So I would look to my LLS partners to determine the frequency or what the procedures would be to defer. But if there's a topic that we would need to go into closed session rather than hopscotching back and forth, I would say we would say that we will go into closed session at the end of the open capital ones, and then go in and address if there was 2 or 3 or 5 or all of them, whatever you need to do to go into closed session to talk about the financials, and then we can come back out, and then the motions would be, they're currently, as I understand them, written to be just remove or add this project with no dollar value or reduce by a percentage, but that can't be traced to a dollar value, right? So we're still not tipping our hand from that perspective. So we could go into closed session at the end and speak about the particular, what does that actually mean in dollars? And then resume back in open session and be like, just remove project or percent change or whatever like that.
Okay, and maybe just a specific question for LLS. Does that mean if a motion is put forward, it would be tabled? Is that the right terminology? And then it would be discussed, and then that motion would be picked up again following an in-camera session? I'm just looking for the mechanism that we're going to use to go through this. Just the clarity now will help us, believe me.
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk. Yeah, we would just table that motion, go into closed session to discuss, and then just bring that motion back when it was ready to be debated.
Yeah, thank you for that clarity. I just wanted to ensure that, we had that quick discussion here now, just because I feel there could be some logistical stuff to deal with. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. That's a great question. Okay, we will proceed now to the first motion. Madam Clerk.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, go ahead. So did you want to say something?
So without speaking to the financial impacts, this would be a closed session item to go in to discuss the monetary impact of this piece, but to speak largely about the mechanics of, there's the association between reducing the capital program does not directly impact the operating tax increase requirement. There is, by extension, there can be inferred that there's a relationship between reserve transfers and the capital programs, but our reserve position is separate, and so there is not a direct correlation between any reductions to capital that will have a one-to-one impact on the operating budget, just for clarification.
Councillor Murray, did you need anything on that?
I can just go forward with the motion then? Okay, yes, that the proposed 2026 traffic safety initiatives, 2026, be reduced by 50% in the 2026 capital budget.
Thank you. Any questions around this motion? Councillor Penrod first, and then Councillor Van Newkirk.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a procedural question. Is this motion in order, not on its merits, but just as a timing piece? We're currently, and I might be misunderstanding, I understood that we're currently talking about the operating budget, and so this is a motion on the capital budget.
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod. So we are going capital first, and then it's operating.
Thank you.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, just wondering, just procedure-wise, so Councillor Murray has the opportunity now to speak to her motion.
Thank
and
you.
then based upon that, then I may or may not have questions. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Murray, did you want to elaborate on that?
Well, just looking to reduce some costs. My understanding is that that's something that we can control a little bit of cost with and still be able to have a little bit of budget to work with and maybe it won't be necessarily 2026, but something that goes forward.
Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. And I kind of anticipated this. So for me to vote on this motion, I would want to know what the financial impact of that is and what the pieces that comprise the traffic safety initiative are. Any of these motions that come forward, personally, I would like to understand what we're getting, what we're losing, and what would the impact be. So I think for me, I'm not prepared to vote on this motion until an in-camera piece is done. A common question that I will ask throughout the budget process is, what is the problem we're trying to solve specific to traffic safety initiatives? So, or any other issue. What I understand from the opening is that, this is, presented as a cost control measure, and I respect that because I think that's what council needs to do. So I'll just leave my comments at that. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Natellenbos.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. I guess just going to Councillor Murray here, just wondering what kind of negative effects you could see by, potentially you feel, by reducing this by 50%. I see the positive, obviously, some extra cash in the bank account, but what are some of the negatives you may anticipate by this reduction?
Well, my thought is that we're going to be putting in over the next, over this budget and the next couple of years, other areas that we can still be focused on traffic safety, including some of the protective services pieces. And I feel that that perhaps can be offset even with this reduction.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I think I align with Councillor Van Nieuwkerk here. Just we'll have to go into closed session to see what this really looks like, would be my opinion.
We'll need a motion to go into closed session.
So if we are able to maybe just table this one, hearing council's conversation, and then we can go to the next one, and then I'll just do a running on the ones that we'll be going into. I just want to clarify that no other councillors have any open questions that they want to ask with regards to this motion, and everything else would be enclosed.
Councillor Penrod?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just wondering if administration could speak to the nature of the fund, the dollars that fund the traffic safety initiatives. As I understand it, they're tied directly to money that comes in from automatic traffic enforcement, the 8 program.
So, through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, before the reserve restructuring that happened in August, there was a separate traffic safety program reserve. We're now rolling that up into our municipal capital reserve. We are funding this program from the reserve. Now, there is not a one-to-one relationship as far as the amount that's been budgeted for is not one-to-one with the anticipated revenue that will be coming in. This is now a municipal supported initiative or partially municipal supported initiative, not fully cost recovery from the traffic safety fines.
Thank you. I'll leave it there for now.
Okay, so we'll need a motion to go in. Oh, no, we're going to table this one. We're going to
So we'll table this one, and I'll bring the next motion up on the screen.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mayor, I'm trying to do several things at the same time. Again, without getting into the financial piece, just a reminder that any change to the capital budget on this impact or this project would not impact the operating tax requirement.
Okay, Councillor Natal. Oh, actually, did you want to speak to that first, Councillor Murray?
Yes. The motion is that the proposed 2026 INF or infrastructure Nickel KNRRC, because I'm not sure of all the letters, lobby renewal 2026 be removed from the 2026 capital budget project. I'm able to speak to it right now on the same thing? Okay.
Yes.
I just feel that this is something that, although it sounds like it is imminent in a way, as we've discussed with most of the things in this budget, I feel that we can push that along at least another year, in my opinion. So I'd be looking for some support with that.
Councillor Tellenboss.
Thank you, Mayor. I hate to do this, but I do feel like this is going to have to be a closed session discussion. Only reason I say that is there were some critical items that were identified, more so on the heating side. And obviously, in terms of running a building and efficiencies there, we'll be losing on the operating side if we don't correct that issue. So I would like to evaluate what that looks like in maybe a friendly amendment come time where it's a partial funding versus full funding.
Can you just clarify, Mr. Boyachuk, in terms of what you said earlier? So this does not affect the 8.87%, any of these things, is that correct?
To you, Madam Mayor. So yes, that is correct. So the funding, the way the funding works, it's not a one-to-one relationship that the money from the operating budget directly funds capital. In an ideal situation where our reserves are all fully healthy and up to the balances that they should be, there would be that relationship that if we decided not to do capital, I don't need to transfer as much money into the capital funding reserves. However, even though we're potentially reducing the capital cost here, our reserve position is so critical that administration still recommends the full reserve transfer, regardless of what the changes to the capital piece are. So there is not a one-to-one that automatically, when you, if council was to approve this reduction, whatever the dollar value is, it will not have a direct impact on the operating 8.87.
Okay. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, just maybe more for clarity for the public. What I understand is that whatever we do remove out of the capital project budget, even though it doesn't affect our tax rate this year, it will have an effect on our reserves. Is that correct?
Through the mayor to the council, Mayor, yes. So it will have a positive impact on our revenue, on our reserve position, and would, in theory, if there was just reductions from what our ask was to what the final number is, that might change the time frame from 6 years to 5 years, or like move the until we get to a healthy spot. It would have a positive impact on our reserve position, but it will not impact the tax rate directly. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Hyde and then Councillor Penrod.
Yeah, so thank you, Mayor. Just looking at, again, looking at this motion that's on the floor, my issue with this is that we start kicking things down the road, then got bigger increases down the road. Yes, there should be a little bit more clarification as to exactly what is being done. However, that's getting into micro, looking at it, switching a BA tile to some other type of tile or doing something like that. I think that we can trust admin to make the proper decisions as to what that looks like as far as the Ken Nickel Arena looks like, the upgrade. So I think that this needs to get done, and the further we punt it down the road, the more expensive it gets most of the time. So if it's within the budget, I would be in favor I would not be in favor of this motion simply because I don't want to punt it down the road for us to have future increases.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Councillor Penrod, do you have some comments or questions?
Thanks, Mayor. Just for Councillor Murray, maybe you could speak. It sounds like you've got a couple of these now. Maybe you could just clarify for me some of the spirit or the intent here. And I think we've got it from a couple ends now. But do you want to say any more about what you're trying to accomplish? Are you trying to protect reserve funding? Are you trying to free up money for other potential capital spend? that would help me.
Yes, thank you. Actually, most of my intention was to beef up our reserve portion of it, although it would be nice if it did have a lasting effect on our tax rate. I just think that it's prudent to consider the savings potential, even in terms of like what we might be able to gain in interest and having that funding in our reserves and just collecting on that and having it sit for, I would say, a year. As I said, again, we know that a lot of these costs are going to be coming up whether we defer them now. I'm just not sure that that one is super crucial to complete this year.
Thank you for that clarification, Councillor Van Newkirk.
Yeah, thank you. For me, this one comes down to the cost of money and money management. So, if we just use a round number like $100,000, let's say that's how much this was, we would defer $100,000. That would go into the reserve. We know that anything we do in the future costs more. Labor costs more, parts cost more, time costs more, everything costs more in the future. So what we would, the wrong word is gambling, but I'm going to use it. What we'd be gambling on is that the $100,000 in the reserves is going to make more money than the project would have initially cost. And I don't know that for certain. We've talked to the investment policy being increased by the, or not increased, the investment policy being reviewed for potential ways to make more money on that 100,000. But for me, and this will ring true, this comment will ring true to any of the, we're going to remove projects to put more money in reserves. It comes down to, if we take that $100,000, don't put it into reserve, we need to make more money on that than it would cost us to do the same thing in the future. And I don't have that certainty, and administration certainly can't provide that. So that's just a generic comment that I will make on any of the motions. And what I just said will apply to any of the motions that come forward around don't do it, put more money in reserves. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk. Excuse me. My thoughts on this is I understand the spirit behind it as well, and I think that for me it comes down to what's critical and what's not in terms of even focus and manpower towards a project. I understand that's what you're kind of going after in terms of if we have numerous things that we need to complete in a year, what would be the most critical, and then go down from there in terms of priorities so that we can make sure that the capacity of our staff is not expanded out into areas that maybe are not so critical. Is that the spirit of it?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it, yes. As well, and this might, I'm not a financialist person, but, when they talk about any type of investment, putting in the extra money in the beginning often gives you a little bit of extra. And I understand that we're talking about not enough, as Councillor Van Nieuwkerk said. It's not going to be enough to fund something else later on. But that was my intent, was to put some extra savings in this first year when we're seeing a pretty significant reserve fund deficit, if you will. That's probably not the right word either. Just to kind of balance that out a little bit better in the beginning, right in this first year.
Thank you. So I guess the next, you want to say something, Councillor Hyde?
Yeah, and I think that, and I totally understand where you're coming from, Councillor Murray. One of the things that I think that this will actually do will also make our operating be more efficient as well. So I know there's talk about an air curtain, some things like that, which will reduce the cost of operation with heating, those type of things, and also for upkeep. We're talking about a building that is over 50 years old, and at some point it's going to, we can't afford to replace it. So we need to be very cognizant of the fact that we need to keep the upkeep on this building. And I think the least expensive route is to be doing these type of things each year. in order to make sure that we have this facility for a little bit longer, for sure, because we don't have the operating budget to replace it. So I'm just looking at maintenance, make sure we keep it up. If you decide to push off your oil change for another 5,000 kilometers, you can have large effects later on down the road. So again, I won't be in favor of this motion.
So from what I understood, we don't really know the full detail of what this renewal would look like. We did hear in terms of the flooring and some curtains, I think you said. So I don't know if, as councillors, we have enough information to vote on this, or if you feel like we need to table this as well and go into closed session.
Through the mayor, sorry, just for clarity. So unless there's you want to discuss the financials, you could ask your supplemental question, I believe,
Okay.
now from administration for clarity if there was something else.
Okay. So can you give us the scope of work that this would include? Number 17? Yep, go ahead.
To the mayor. So this will include new flooring in both the upper and lower lobbies, as well as the second floor of rink 1 on the top of the rink. It'll also encompass the washroom updates in both the lobbies, so that's 4 washrooms, reconfiguration of the existing space. So in the lower lobby, there's some rooms, we'd open it up and adjust the area. It'll also include, like I said, the air curtains, and it'll also include the fascia replacement at the ELCC building. The fascia is starting to fall apart, so it would include that replacement as well.
Okay, so no heating. Sorry, did I miss something?
It includes the heated air curtains at the
air
main,
curtains.
yeah, at the main entrance. Yeah,
Okay.
so two air curtain replacements.
Sorry.
Yeah.
You have to define what air curtains are to me. I'm not. So that entails renewing the heating system, correct? Just for
Correct.
clarity.
Yes, and it'll also help prevent cold air from blowing into the lobby. There's been some complaints of the drinking fountain even freezing when the doors are left open. So.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Murray, did you want to speak to that?
Well, yes, actually, I'm now considering what's the effect on the residents? Like, are we going to be able to do this work while still be able to use both the rinks? Or is the facility going to be shut down? Does this impact some of the rent that we're going to be getting next year?
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, we would coordinate this work during the summer when the rinks are closed, and we'd work with the operations there to ensure that the space would still be able to use to be rent out as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Deliberations.
Thank you, Mayor. So again, I'm all for the operational side, the things we need to do to make things function and make sure we're not having any issues like frozen water fountains. But the aesthetic side of things, I'm a little questionable on. So if we're looking to reduce it, I think we're going to have to talk monetary value and what project or what scope of each project costs.
Okay, so from that, I understand that we are going to table this and move it to closed session at a later point. Correct? That's what I get. Okay, let's go on to, unless there's anything else, Madam Clerk, we go on to the next motion.
So similar to the other items, so this would have a positive impact on our reserve position, but would not impact the tax rate directly.
All right, so again, this is a prop up to reserves, similar to what Councillor Murray had said. Then, that the proposed 2026 INF project management quarter-ton truck 2026 be removed from the 2026 capital budget. Speaking to the motion, I just don't feel that this is an expenditure at this time that we need to do. I understand that administration does need to get out to site and do those things as well. But I don't see the relevance to having another quarter-ton truck expense. Again, this isn't just a quarter-ton truck, but it comes along with operational as well. Oil changes, new tires, all the things down the road that we have to go into. So I just don't feel that this is an item that needs to be purchased at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Councillor Van Newkirk, you have a question?
Yeah, no question, just looking to open debate on the item. So for me, picking and choosing off an operational list of needs rather than wants on the renewal side isn't where I'm prepared to go. I would, if we're going to look at this list in its entirety and start selecting items off of this list that council feels aren't required, I don't know how we do that without more information from administration. So my question is to administration, what doesn't happen if we don't have this truck? Because it's going to be not long that council's going to be up here hearing that some service level or some piece, in the community wasn't looked after, and there will be a resident here speaking to us about that. And was it not looked after because they simply couldn't get to the site that day because we didn't have a truck to get there? Because that's exactly what could happen when we start picking and choosing from an operational list. For me, I welcome conversations like we just had because I do think Councillor Murray put forward a motion that'll bring some robust debate, and I think we'll get somewhere with that. But picking and choosing trucks, snow plows, Kubotas, Sanders, all of that thing speaks directly to the service levels decreasing. And I think the spirit of this budget is actually to take the service levels and get them to level set. If that is the spirit of the budget that administration has put forward, and if council is maintaining the spirit of that budget, then this doesn't get my support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Newkirk.
Do I speak back to the motion now?
You can.
Okay, so this is all about an old philosophy. If you look after the pennies, the nickels will come. So yes, as I do agree with my fellow councillor Van Newkirk that the spirit is to go forward. However, I think that we as councillors are asked to take a look at this a little bit under a bit of a microscope for the community. And if it's 100,000 here, 100,000 there, it may not look like a lot, but $100,000 to a lot of people means a lot. So it's a matter of perspective, I think. And so when we look at these items that can just be picked off a little bit here and there, it is an engagement with the public to say we are paying attention to the entirety of the budget and not just to the entire spirit of the budget, but the entirety of the budget. So when I'm proposing some of these one-offs, yes, $100,000 doesn't look like much on the entire budget, but it means a lot to a lot of people. So that's where I'm going with this.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde.
Madam Mayor, sorry, just to clarify that project is not $100,000 and we're not talking, that was
I apologize.
Hypothetical.
Hypothetically is what I'm saying. Hypothetically, it could be 50, it could be 60, it could be 10,000. And the whole thing about that is $10,000 to some people is a lot of money. $500,000 to other people isn't. So if I'm looking at each of these things, I'm looking at it through the microscope of the citizens and the taxpayers and saying, okay, what is their budget for their home, and what does this look like for them? And they want us to make sure that we're looking at this very closely. So that's what the spirit of this is. It's not to take down service levels. It's not to do anything like that. It's maintaining service levels, but looking at wants and needs.
Thank you. Yes, that's what I see these motions as well, when we're looking at, okay, how do we take our budget? How do we kind of looking at what are expenses? Again, going back to what's critical, what's necessary at this time, and what's maybe something that we can defer. So that's how I see this. Councillor Tellenboss, did you want to speak to that? And then Councillor Penrod.
Yes, perfect. Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, and Councillor Van Newkirk kind of led to this already, but just curious, Councillor Hyde, what kind of consultation you did potentially with operations, just to determine maybe this is the least of a priority on their list as opposed to some of the other items, and how you determine that the truck was the best approach again, as opposed to some of the other items that are listed.
Yes, through the mayor to Councilor Tellenboss. I did have a quick discussion with operations, plus we already had the debate openly last week. And just taking a look at this, this is one of the items that I've put forward, and I think there's some other items in there. So, I have some other operations and other things in the capital budget that I think are as well. This is just one of those items. It wouldn't be my top priority. Maybe it's my middle priority. There's other ones that are more priority, but this is just one of the motions that I'm putting forward in addition to some of the other motions that I'm putting forward.
Perfect, thank you. And sorry, just to clarify, in terms of prioritization, I'm referring to the operations group. So you had consultation, so I'll just check with operations. Is this the item that is of least value in, let's say, that whole set of items that have been proposed for purchase? Is that something that we're okay to get rid of? I know we don't want to get rid of anything, but would that be the item of lowest priority?
Who are we speaking to this, great? Who is going to speak to that? Okay, go ahead, CAO.
Yeah, great question, Councillor Tellenboss, and I will let operations provide their opinion, but I just wanted to be clear for council and for the public that this is a bare bones budget. We have chunked down every piece that we could to try and make it palatable. When we identify something like a quarter-ton truck, there's service levels that will be affected if it's not added. As we mentioned last week, we have added 3 different subdivisions in our city in the last year. We need this equipment to get our job done. That said, we will do what we can with whatever you approve, but I just wanted to be clear that we have chunked this down to priorities before they came into this room. There's no fluff here. Operations, did you want to talk about this specific truck?
Mr. Olowecki.
Through the mayor to Councillor Tellenboss, to Mr. Swartz's comments, we prioritized these items for the budget and didn't advance other projects. The specifics around this vehicle is that there are safety concerns around staff using personal vehicles on construction sites and other aspects of safety that prompted us to promote this particular project as part of a fleet growth item. And to also to Mr. Swartz's point, we are struggling to meet service levels with our project management. We just don't have the transport. We have lots of trucks, but all those trucks are being used for other purposes. They are all assigned to other teams. They're all in the field. So when we need an adequate vehicle with adequate capabilities to, go into a project site, someone in their Toyota Corolla, it just doesn't work, right? And that's what we've been doing to this date. So this is an attempt to make it safer for our workforce and make sure that we can adequately supply them the tools they need to do their job. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
And just a final comment on that is, we could come forward and just go, I want you to cut $250,000 out of this part of the budget. However, I wanted to give a chance to have a little bit of discussion on some of these items from a little bit further down, like not so high level. I don't want to just throw this on administration and say, hey, you guys cut this by this amount of money. I want to make sure that the public knows that we've taken a look at some of these things. And yes, I understand and can appreciate the fact that we are using sometimes our own personal vehicles to go to these different job sites. However, at this time, I'm just not prepared to put this as a capital expenditure, and I would rather delay it for another year and take a look and see what that looks like. And I think that there's other things in the budget. For instance, backhoes and things like that that are going to be used a lot more. So as I do appreciate that this is something that, you know, is something that will be needed down the road, I just don't feel like this particular product is needed at this time.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Penrod, did you want to speak to something?
Thanks, Mayor. So I think Councillor Van Newkirk has already said better than I can some of my thinking, but one of the things I'm reflecting on through these deliberations is a piece that we received in our November 10th meeting on a report on service levels. And I think that report has been linked to the budget meetings as supplemental information. It's a graphic that I wonder if we could display if we're working on it. Yeah. So it's a graphic of a triangle. And I think what I hear Councillor Hyde trying to do is manage some of the cost here, right? But I think what I'm learning and starting to understand better is that there's no freebies here. Probably councils a few decades ago snapped up all those freebies. And every once in a while we happen upon an opportunity. I think of Councillor Natellenbos had a great idea last year. We'll probably talk more about later in fees and services. But you tend to find those things once and then they're brought into the formula. And so more than freebies, what we find is trade-offs, right? And so we're trading often between costs or funding and risk and services. And like a lot of things in life, if you do really well, you can get two of those things, but not often three. And so that brings me full circle around to where Councillor Van Newkirk was going is I suspect if we cut this, and we've heard from admin already, what we're going to be doing is trading cost for service. And one of the things I'm coming into this budget really determined to do is to protect our service levels as best I can. Thanks.
Thank you so much. So it seems that, again, coming back to if it's not going to affect the bottom line in terms of the tax rate, then is it more prudent for us to kind of go through, and I'm looking to you, Madam Clerk, and perhaps Jay, in terms of that, these kinds of items as a separate ask and go directly to those things that will affect, and then come back and revisit these? Is that something just for expediency, for time? I don't know how my fellow councillors feel about that, but go ahead.
So to you, Madam Mayor. So the reason for it's not whether or not we don't want to get to dessert before we get to the main course. So this is really about let's get all of the pieces that we know the asks to change, service level changes. So the capital usually impacts operations. So for example, let's say that we decide to remove this truck. And administration would then respond and say, maybe we need more contracted services dollars. Right, so you get the capital ask debated first out of the way, then administration could say, okay, we're comfortable still the operations budget hasn't changed or it needs to change or whatever from that perspective. But if you go the other way around and do operations first and then make a bunch of changes to capital, we could be going back and undoing or re-debating some decisions that were already made. So it's better to do this, even though it's not directly for the 887, these are relevant to the financial position, so I would still recommend this course.
Okay, thank you for that. So it does affect operations, like in terms of the budget, the focus?
It could. So depending on whatever motions come forward and decisions that are made, there could be impacts to the operating budget that might, if it's, right, we say we don't want to, I'm just gonna make things up, like let's say we don't want to have a plow, snow plow, we don't want to support that. Now we need to contract to deliver service to remove snow, right? So that would be a change that we would have to understand the consequence. So it's better to get the capital elements out of the way, and then we can focus in on the operating side.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Councillor Van Newkirk, did you want to speak to this before we go to the motion?
Yeah, I wanted to just continue the debate on the motion, so.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to try and get some absolute clarity from administration and directly to operations. So Councillor Hyde said he had a discussion with operations. I just want to be really clear. Was advice provided to Councillor Hyde that puts this item, and I'd just like to hear from administration, like has that advice been provided to Councillor Hyde? Thank you.
To be honest, Councillor Tellenboss, all of my advice was basically in front of the public. There's been no real discussion in behind. It was basically some clarification on what size the truck was, and that was it. Not cost, not anything else, nothing else that I would ever want to discuss without full transparency to the public.
Yeah, so just looking for an answer from administration, like, has advice been provided to Councillor Hyde that this truck would go to the top of the list of things that we would want to remove?
Go ahead, Mr. Nowacki.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, I'm not aware of any prioritization list that's been provided.
Thank you for that.
Just a question I have in regards to these kind of asks. Are these normally, off the lot, brand new? Or do we ever source, say, a week off the lot?
So to you, Madam Mayor, in fact, maybe it is a new one. And so a number of considerations through the procurement process, cost only being one of them. It's the value, the service, all of the pieces. So we are not just blindly taking one way that we only buy used vehicles or only buy new vehicles or anything like that. It's about using our procurement process to maximize the value for the taxpayer and the city. So there's no one answer to that question.
Okay, thank you. Any other councillor have debate on this?
Mayor, prior to calling the motion for vote, we do have that diagram that Councillor Penrod was speaking to, if you want us to pull it up here.
Sure. So Councillor Penrod.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking to instruct my colleagues on this. Just wanted to make sure not everyone in the public would have seen this. So it is a piece that's sort of central to the way that I'm thinking about this after we've done some important work over the past planning. And I guess the other piece that's related to it has been our asset management strategy. So thank you.
Thank you. So I guess the question is, do we feel like we need to go in camera or table this particular one? Are there any for this particular motion? Anybody?
Mayor, I did not hear any other councillors wanting to add it to the list, so I would say that if councillors not opposed, we could go straight to the vote.
Okay, Councillor Penrod, did you?
Yeah, I was just going to call the question, Mayor.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, so we'll put the motion back up. Councillor Hyde.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Again, I understand that in the broad sense of it, and going back to the triangle and looking at that about risk assessment, seeing if it's going to actually become a large impact to the level of service. I feel that this isn't going to make a large impact to the level of service. I think that we've done fairly well to this point. Does that mean that it's going to go up or down? It's very hard to say. But at this point, I'm just considering all of the different proposals within the capital budget, and I'm just looking at this one not being a high priority at this point. That is my own understanding. That did not come from administration. I do not have a priority checklist, but I feel, in my opinion, this is not a high priority at this time.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Okay, if you could just read the motion.
Motion again that the proposed 2026 INF project management quarter-ton truck 2026 be removed from the 2026 capital budget.
Okay, so we will vote. And that was defeated with, I can't see myself and Councillor Hyde approved.
I have, yes, defeated, and I have Councillor Hyde in favor and the mayor in favor of
Correct.
defeated.
Okay, so we will move to the next motion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I feel like I could just record a sound loop. So this project does not have any direct impact on the operating budget percentage, but would positively impact our reserve position.
Would positively impact our reserve position.
Yes.
Correct, thank you. Councillor Hyde, if you want to speak to your motion.
That the proposed 2026 INF 50 Street Trail Design 2026 be removed from the 2026 capital budget. So basically, when I looked at this and dug into it a little bit further, we have to take the trail over to the west side of 50th Street because we would look at significantly buying land, private land, in order to do it on the east side of 50th Street. There is proposed lights that are going in on 50th Street in order to allow for a crosswalk to go across to those, to said path, and then down the west side of 50th Street, basically into the city. The reason I'm opposed to this is because I don't know what that is going to look like in the future, as far as there is private land on the west side of that road. There's significant signage on the west side of that road. There is a lot more to look into than just looking into a street trail design. I think there's lots more designing that will have to be made around this corridor. And I think that it would be prudent to push this back until we have some of those questions answered in the future. So I know that economic development is working quite hard with some of those private landowners. I know that there is definitely more discussion with the landowners on the east side of the road, so I'm hoping that there'll be some fruit that comes from that side. But at this time, I just think there's just too many tangibles to go ahead and start this process. That's my idea on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Now we're open for debate. Councillor Natellenbos.
Thank you, Mayor. Just, I guess, really quickly, one of the things that while campaigning was discussed was the lack of trail systems. Well, the positives about the trail systems we do have, but also the shortfall and the gap that we do have in some areas, this being one of them. I know this is a design concept, but we need to start somewhere, and I believe here's where we start. So I won't be supporting this motion.
Councillor Van Nieuwkerk.
Yeah, thank you. In previous meetings throughout my term, I've expressed the desire and responsibility of the community to undertake a project like this. I've looked at and motioned, and we've received information on previously, putting a trail up to Larev. And for myself, I believe there's an inherent responsibility of administration and council to connect that portion of Beaumont, which is a tax contributing portion to our municipality, with the rest of the community. We can have all kinds of discussion around how it got there and why and all those things. But the people in Beaumont enjoy all of Beaumont, and that includes Larev and what's going to be built there. And the community and the citizens that live there deserve trails the same as everyone else. A design is where everything starts. There are a whole bunch of things that will be considered in the design. Administration has all the information around what is proposed, what's coming, what does it take. The current state of the west side of the road doesn't dictate the design of a trail in the future. There's a whole bunch of considerations that administration no doubt will put into this, and that's reflective of the level of effort that we know and we've been presented with to create this. So, I'll stop my remarks there. I won't be supporting this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Van Nieuwkerk. I guess I have a question for administration. Is that complete in terms of what we know to be going on both sides of the 50th Street there? Is there any potential for something major to change that would impact that?
To the mayor, could you repeat your question? I don't quite follow.
Well, Councillor Hyde was referring to the fact that we don't know how it's all going to look in those areas, and so that might impact the look of the trail and everything like that. So it'd be better to defer it until we actually know what is going in on both sides of that area.
Thank you for that. Through the mayor, the design will take that into consideration. We see this as a priority, as an emerging concern around connectivity of Le Rêve to the community. We also look at it as a safety concern. Anybody driving down 50th Street north of 510 will see people walking back and forth and so on, kids riding bikes, so on. We feel it's a priority to do the design of this trail to build in that connectivity to allow residents to have that access, that safe access to the rest of the city and so on. So,
Does that include a sidewalk? Is the design also include, it's a trail system, but is that including a sidewalk as well?
Basically, with the design, they will determine what the specific scope of work is. I mean, the objective is to create a link between Le Rêve and the rest of the city on the west side, because the city does own a strip of right-of-way on the west side that would accommodate a trail system. The other piece of that that's also taken into consideration is there will be a set of traffic lights at that, I'm not sure the street name, but the most northerly street in Le Rêve that will accommodate pedestrian traffic crossing 50th Street to the west.
Okay, sorry, just another point of clarification. When you're talking about the west side, are you talking about the west side of 50th Street or the west
Correct.
side of Le Rêve? The west side?
Yes, sorry, yes. So the city doesn't own right-of-way on the east side of 50th Street. We do own adequate right-of-way on the west side to accommodate a trail system.
Okay. I'm going to move now to Councillor Colesmith.
Thank you. I guess a question for Councillor Hyde is the intent here, do you not see the value in the trail system going forward? Is the intent to remove this completely or just to kick it down the road?
Yeah, for clarification, and thanks for the question. What we know in Beaumont is that everything changes over, I mean, if you look at the last 5 years, we've had significant change over the last 5 years. So it's not just about putting this trail design on hold. What I'm saying is, once we do this trail design, next year it's going to be a significant cost to put this trail in. So it's not just about saying, okay, we want to do the trail design. It's looking at the next 3 years and saying, are we prepared to do that cost next year? And if we aren't in the next 3 to 4 years, this trail design is going to be obsolete. So unless we're looking at long-term, and I am all for connecting Le Rêve, don't get me wrong, that's a bane in my bonnet for a long time, sort of an idea, but the fact of the matter is that you have to think long-term, and you have to say, if we start to spend money on this trail design and we are not prepared to go forward next year with a significant cost, because we know there's going to be significant other costs that are going to come up for the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, and then you need to think about that is this the time to do this trail design if you're not willing to go forward in the next few years? So I'm thinking down the road. Absolutely, do we need a trail? 100%. Do we need connectivity? 100%. But I don't know if we brought this forward next year to the citizens and said, okay, we've done the study, now we're ready to spend X amount of dollars, which could be several digits. Are we prepared to do that next year? And if not, perhaps we should wait to see what the next few years' outcome is for that area. And that's where I'm at with this.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. Did you want to speak to that, Ryan?
Madam Mayor, if I could, please, through you to Councillor Hyde. The corridor, the 50th Street corridor, is known, and that west side has been chosen because it is at its final land extents. So the design would follow our design and construction standards, and any upcoming and future projects along that west corridor would also tie into that. So reducing and effectively eliminating any throwaway costs would be contemplated within this. In addition, we're looking at the 510 corridor and intersection improvements at the 50th Street intersection, which also requires pedestrian facilities to facilitate this development at the same time. So that project is currently planned to be constructed in 2027, which we would correlate and correspond the 50th Street trail with the 50th Street and 510 intersection upgrades.
Thank you. Councillor Penrod and then Councillor Murray.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks for bringing this forward, Councillor Hyde. For administration, just wanted to clarify it. I don't think that it's specific in where this is contemplated in page 81 of the budget. Is this a design build proposal where we would be looking at building with next year or the year after? Or is this a little bit more severed, get the design and then reassess? It's my understanding that by going through the design process, we refine our numbers on what the ultimate cost of this would be. So to Councillor Van Nieuwkerk's point, this has been a need and it's emerging as a risk that we need to manage as a community. We need to understand better how and when to phase that and how to prioritize it. So is this the next step to refine our evaluation of what the cost of the project would ultimately be?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, if I might, through you to Councillor Penrod, that's a great question, and of course we're striving to create our designs in a manner that would provide us with the most effective cost estimates prior to the budget process in 2027. So we would be looking to have a detailed design completed before this event next year.
But funding or not funding this doesn't, well, I guess funding this, if we go that direction, if council goes that direction, it doesn't tie our hands going into next year. It's not, that's a separate decision, I guess, is what I'm understanding.
Through the mayor to Councillor Penrod, yes. So they are distinct different decision points. So this is literally just design with no construction commitment in regards to this. And the second decision would come forward in a subsequent budget year for council's approval on the construction piece.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Councillor Hyde. I actually can see where you're trying to go with this, and so I actually, it's a tough decision because I feel like, we're ready for that trail, but I do feel that perhaps maybe we're jumping the gun. I'm curious to know, and this might be something we have to ask in closed session, but about the private property that is on the east side, like how, is there a chance that that's eventually?
Yeah, that's a great question. If you don't mind, I can chime in on that. We would need to expropriate the land that would be on that east side. It's privately held. They have no interest in selling at this time, not for a long time. We have explored that. Because of the location of Le Rêve in relation to the rest of the community, we're having a lot of people walking alongside the road, and we've been exploring different options for how to be able to get a trail sooner rather than waiting about 25 years or whatever this might look like down the road for the landowner to be willing. If we did go through the expropriation rates, we would have to compensate at fair market value, and it typically takes about a year to 2 years to be able to expropriate the land. So it is an option if we did want to go down the east side, but the west side was seen as less delays and more timely to be able to advance construction.
Okay, I'm also curious if there are current street, or rather trail systems within Le Rêve right now? Like, is it actually connecting just to bring us basically to that set of lights? Or is, besides, obviously there's sidewalks in that community, but is there a trail system right now?
Thank you. Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, the trail system would connect in to 50th Street and 510. So would come on down, not just to that set of lights that would be in Le Rêve. So all the way down to existing Beaumont or previously developed areas.
Sorry, so there is an existing trail system in Larev?
Larev is currently building out over time. I think there is plans to advance the trail system. There is some trail connectivity within the neighborhood that goes around the storm ponds, but it is only isolated to the Larev neighborhood. And with Old Yale Brewing and stuff, it's a destination for people within Beaumont. So we're trying to find different ways for them to be able to get there without getting in their car to go to a brewery.
Okay, thank you.
Through the mayor to Councillor Murray, I also just want to add that this project does not include any trails beyond the corridor from on the west side of 50th Street. This project does not entail any design of trails within Larev itself.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think maybe waiting on this might be a good idea, because I feel like there may be more to come that that we see with more clarity with a little bit of time.
Thank you. I just have a question regarding that as well. So you said it comes from 510 up on the west side there. Is the idea including a crossing then over to the east side, given the fact that there's no trail system currently on the east side?
To the mayor, the intersection upgrade that will be done by the developer, I believe in the spring, will allow that connection to go from the east side to the trail on the west. Now, currently, as the timing works, the intersection will be in place. Again, I don't have specifics, but the developer-led intersection will be in place hopefully sometime spring, summer 2026. The trail design would be anticipated for completion end of 26 with possible construction in 2027. So there won't be alignment on those projects, but the idea is that the intersection would facilitate safe pedestrian crossing from Larev over 50th Street to the west side to allow them to facilitate trail access.
Thank you for that clarification. So from what I'm hearing, then, that it might be actually more prudent to maybe delay it because of the fact that there's going to be a developer creating the intersection there that we might take into consideration after the fact to implement into our design, because you said it's not going to be completed, built out until even 2027, correct?
To the mayor, so essentially the idea behind putting forward the design work this year would be to allow us to construct in 27. If we delay the design work this year, then we have to do the design next year, which would delay a full year where we wouldn't have the trail, right? Ideally, it's probably going to take most of a construction season to build the trail or construct the trail. So even with a design in 2026, if this were approved, you would see the soonest the trail would be built would be the end of 27 or fall of 2027. If we delay the design this year and do it next year, then you would see further delays on the trail being available for public use.
Okay, and we don't know right now even the cost of what it would be, and that's part of the design aspect.
Correct.
Okay, I'm going to thank you so much. Councillor Van Newkirk and then Councillor Tellenboss.
Yeah, thank you. Just looking for some clarity from administration. So I heard early on in this one here that the intent is to utilize the city-owned right-of-way on the west side of 50th Street. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Is there any anticipated changes to the city having ownership or autonomy on that land contemplated?
Through the mayor to
What would have to happen for the city not to have that land anymore?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, I'm just trying to get clarification on what you're asking. Are you speaking specifically about the right-of-way where the path would go?
No, I'll just make my point is that the city owns the land.
Correct.
And the city has autonomy on that land.
Correct.
And that's not going to change.
Correct.
Doesn't matter what's built around it, doesn't matter what plans, what new information, what designs, what the developers put forward. My point is it's a city-owned piece of land that the design will contemplate usage of. And I want to point out that administration is the receiver of any and all plans into the municipality. Therefore, if new information comes in partway through this design, that will be contemplated. Can you confirm that you do not need council input to consider on the fly those things which are received during the design process?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Newkirk, that is correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Councillor Natelmas.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a quick question in terms of doing this now versus later. Is there an opportunity, should we get this design put together, for potential cost sharing with a developer down the road, given we have our ducks in a row and we're ready to present it?
Thank you through the mayor to you, Councillor Van Newkirk. Yes, there are opportunities to recoup or to cost share with developers. One of their responsibilities through subdivision and development is to provide walkways, transportation networks, roads, and those kind of connections that would service that. And we would be seeking to explore those options and ensure that the public interest is taken care of and that developers were paying their fair share for our needed infrastructure that services their development.
Perfect, so thank you. So obviously this came as a recommendation for many reasons, but could one of them be considered that, hey, there's a developer in and around the area, it's tough to get to that area, there's a potential for cost sharing, and the sooner the better in terms of getting this design done?
Ms. Raymond?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Councillor Natellenboss. Yes, we are definitely in active conversations with all landowners in the north about cost sharing on this item to reduce costs.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, so are we ready to vote?
Yeah, I'll just make one more closing comment on that. Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would just caution, I'm a long-term planner. Putting in a pathway is a 20-year, 25-year, 30-year project that we know is going to connect all of Beaumont, and Beaumont is going to grow substantially over the years. So getting this right is incredibly important to me. I'm not going to be here in 40 years, or I hope I'm not. And if I am, then kick me out. But honestly, I think that this is part of that whole 20-year plan, and we're coming up to doing a lot of work on the IDP and many other places that we're going to be talking about. So this will come up in a lot of this planning for the next 20 years and how we see the vision and how the people of Beaumont see the vision for this. To me, this is a quick thing that came out of a lot of different areas and said, well, we want a path, we want a path, we want a path. Well, that's great. I know we need a path, but we need to design properly for the future. And we have seen, if you look 10 years ago, Beaumont looked a lot different. So it's going to be us to look at the structure plan, to look at these type of plans going forward. And I just think it's prudent to wait until we have those things in place before we start making some ad hoc decisions as opposed to, yes, what we want this city to look like. And I think that until we have those pieces of the puzzle, I'm not prepared to spend a bunch of money on something that may or may not change. I know what administration is saying, that this probably won't change, but I have seen a lot of changes that I thought probably weren't going to change in Beaumont over the last 5 to 10 years. So I'm just not ready to move forward with this planning until I have more information, until we as council go through some of those processes with the IDP and the building program and all those type of things. We need to look at those first before we start putting in a decision that's going to affect the next 20 or 30 years. So that's why I'm feeling this can be put off just for a little bit.
Thank you for that.
Mayor, prior to a decision being made on this, we'd like to go into closed session to provide council with more information on this item. And at that time, if council is not opposed, we could also revisit the other 2 items that we had. So if council's okay with that.
Yes, we could do that. So we can, if you would put a motion to go into closed session. Oops. Councillor Van Newkirk, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah,
I
I'm
have
just
a mayor
willing to make the
wishing
motion.
to move this motion. Or sorry, if I have a councillor wishing to move this motion.
Sure, I'll make that motion. That council move into closed session at 12:02 pursuant to the Access of Information Act, Sections 29 and 30. Thank you.
And vote, everyone vote.
I just want to confirm if there's any discussion on the motion prior to the vote.
Oh, sorry about that. Any discussion? Okay, we're good.
Good.
That was passed unanimously.